Have you heard about the Salzburg Festival and are wondering what it's all about? Well, the Salzburg Festival is the biggest, most iconic festival for classical music in the world. Therefore, it is also not only the most important cultural event in Salzburg, but also one of the main events in Salzburg overall. The festival consists of theater, concerts, but most important events are operas. However, the highlight of the Salzburg Festival is a piece of theater performed in front of the cathedral. The Jedermann, in English every man, is the only performance that takes place every year since the foundation of the festival. Are you visiting Salzburg during festival season in July and August and wonder whether or not you should attend a concert? Or are you confused and wanting to find out what the Salzburg Festival is? Don't worry, in this episode, I will tell you everything I know about the Salzburg Festival, including insider tips from years of buying tickets. Let's start at the very beginning. Let's talk about the history of the Salzburg Festival. Now, Salzburg forgot about Mozart for a while after he died. The city only remembered his heritage in 1842, when the Mozart statue was built for the 50th year of Mozart's death. That's when the idea of a classical music festival in honor of Mozart came up. Because the 19th century was troubling times, it took a while to develop that idea. The first festival happened just after the First World War. Times were even more problematic back then. People were poor, but the festival was not only an idea that has grown for a long time, but also a chance to escape the poverty. And that's what happened. The festival brought tourists to Salzburg and still is today. Now, due to the lack of material back then, and due to the lack of a suitable venue, the first performance took place outside on an improvised wooden stage in 1920 with the cathedral's Baroque architecture as a backdrop. While other shows change every year, the Jedermann, the theater they performed in the first year, still performed in front of the cathedral every year. The first festival hall was then built in 1925. On the site of the old Archbishop's horse riding school. Later, the Archbishop's summer riding school was also adapted. Finally, after the Second World War, at the request of Herbert von Karajan, the big concert hall, Großes Festspielhaus, was built. After the Second World War, Karajan became the driving force behind the festival. A person in dispute for his involvement with the Nazi regime, Karajan was one of the most excellent conductors of all time. He didn't only demand a new concert hall, but also initiated the Whitsun and the Easter festivals and was the festival's figurehead until he died in the 1980s. Today, the Salzburg Festival is the biggest classical music festival in the world, with 250,000 tickets sold for shows that happen in the festival season in summer for 6 weeks. The 100th anniversary of the Salzburg Festival in 2020 turned out differently than expected, as you can imagine. The festival took place, but only with a third of the tickets and government funding, since it would otherwise not have been possible. Now, where is the Salzburg Festival held? The festival's main venue is the Festspielhaus concert hall in the festival district in the old town of Salzburg. 3 concert halls are part of the Festspielhaus. First one is the small concert hall, or also Haus for Mozart. The initial venue was the small concert hall. The small concert hall got its name after the big concert hall was built, but was renamed to Haus for Mozart's 250th birthday in 2006. We still have to see if the locals will eventually get to use that name. Now, the Felsenreitschule, the rock riding school, the small concert hall was the first designated opera house in Salzburg in 1925. But the oldest part of the concert hall is the rock riding school. The rock riding school was the Archbishop's summer horse riding school that I already mentioned before. The rock riding school is from the 17th century. It's open air, and the seats for the spectators of the horse shows were built into the mountain. Nowadays, the rocks are only a backdrop. If you saw The Sound of Music, you have already seen the rock riding school. It's where the Trapp family performed before they escaped Austria. Now, the third venue is the Großes Festspielhaus, the large concert hall. As mentioned before, the large concert hall was requested by Herbert von Karajan, who, despite having gotten into trouble for his involvement with the war regime, emerged as the most important figure for the Salzburg Festival. He threatened to leave Salzburg if he doesn't get a larger concert hall. The large concert hall was therefore built in 1956. With a stage of 100 meters wide, the large concert hall has one of the widest stages in the world. While the access for the small concert hall and the rock riding school is the same, the large concert hall is in the same building, but has a separate entrance from the street through 5 bronze doors, above which is inscribed the Latin sentence that translates to "The Muse's holy house is open to those moved by divine power, bears us up who are inspired." Now, Domplatz, the cathedral square, is also used during the festival. As previously mentioned, the first festival was held on Salzburg's Cathedral Square. That's where the only show in 1920, the Jedermann theater, was performed and still is performed nowadays every year as a part of the festival. Therefore, every year during the festival season, the square in front of the cathedral and the otherwise amazing view is blocked by a stage that provides seats for almost 3,000 people. The only purpose of that stage is the performance of the Jedermann. Jedermann is the one theater they already performed in 1920. Now, another venue is the University Church. I told you that there are 3 concert halls as a part of the Festspiele house, but these venues, the Cathedral Square and the University Church, they're not concert halls, but they're venues of the festival. Now, the University Church is one of my 15 favorite sites in Salzburg. If you want to know about these 15 favorite sites, there is an episode about that on the Free Walking Tour podcast. And there's an article on the Free Walking Tour website. Now, while the first show of the festival took place in front of the cathedral in 1920, and the first festival hall was the small concert hall in 1925, concerts were held even before the Festspiel house was built. Therefore, they used the University Church as a concert hall. While the University Church, unlike the Cathedral Square, is not one of the main venues anymore, it is still used for concerts during the festival season. And there are even more Salzburg Festival venues. Today, more and more locations all around the city, such as the State Theatre, the Mozarteum, the Marionette Theatre, the Ice Rink, the former City Cinema, and even places like Hallein in the state of Salzburg outside of the city are used for theatre and concerts. Now, when does the Salzburg Festival happen? The Salzburg Festival occurs from the last 2 weeks of July until the end of August for 6 weeks every year. During the festival, Salzburg is different. The city makes sure everything is perfect, constructions disappear, cafes stay open longer, and before and after the concerts, the streets are flooded with dressed up people. Now, how can you purchase tickets for the Salzburg Festival? To purchase tickets for the Salzburg Festival, you place your orders in January. At least if you want to maximize your chance to actually get the tickets. Because there is a lot more demand for certain tickets than there is availability, the distribution of tickets is a lottery system. First in line are the patrons of the festival. They are the only ones with guaranteed tickets. Everyone else gets notified in March or in April whether or not they get their tickets. You, of course, only pay for the tickets you get, and you could still refuse them. Therefore, from the moment the tickets are first distributed, you can officially buy the rest online or at the ticket office and get them right away. You could also do that while the festival is already going on, but the popular shows are then sold out. For last-minute tickets, you could also try to show up at the venue without a ticket and hope that someone is selling their tickets. It's not allowed, but it was tolerated so far. However, in 2021, tickets have names and it's not possible to sell them anymore due to coronavirus. We don't know how the system works from now on, but that's how it is now. So no more ticket buying on the spot. Before, there most of the time were people searching and buying for tickets, more buying than searching, and often the tickets were more expensive. Often, however, that was the only chance to buy, at least at the last minute. Thing is that in 2020, there was also less demand because of less people traveling, so it was easier to buy tickets. We will still have to see how things continue from now on. Now, are there free concerts at the Salzburg Festival? In the beginning, the designated goal of the Salzburg Festival organizers was to turn the city into a stage, to make the experience inclusive instead of exclusive. Unfortunately, that goal has moved into the background during the century the festival was taking place. In the foreground today is world-class performance and the need to raise the money to maintain that reputation. There is a high demand for tickets, and most of them are expensive. The only free concerts at the Salzburg Festival are during the opening week and at the public viewing at Kapitelplatz. For the shows at the opening, you need to get free tickets from the ticket office at the concert hall. The screen on Kapitelplatz is sponsored by Siemens. While the recordings and the live streams are not the same as the live performance, the vibe at Kapitelplatz, the square next to the cathedral, is usually fantastic. All of the screenings are free to watch. Now, the screen also changed in 2020. In 2020, you had to reserve a ticket. Before, the square was just full of people whenever the shows on screen were on. Now, if you want to sit, you have to reserve a ticket. How to get inexpensive tickets for the Salzburg Festival? To get inexpensive tickets for the Salzburg Festival, you need to plan. Moreover, it would help if you had a bit of luck. Ticket sales open in January, but that's not when you get your tickets. You place your order, and in April, you get notified whether or not you get them. And that's because demand is higher than the availability, as I said. The ticket sales are a lottery system, as I mentioned. The only ones that are guaranteed to get tickets are the sponsors of the festival. The festival needs them to survive. The inexpensive tickets you want to order are the standing and the pillar seats. I'm a huge fan of that. They range from 10 euros to 30 euros. The price correlates with the production value of the performance. I really love those tickets. You get a standing seat for 30 euros. That would cost 5 times as much if you would sit one row in front. In the case of the column seats, the column covers a tiny bit of the view of the huge stage. Not a big deal at all, really. Such a tiny bit that it never bothered me, at least. In the case of the standing seats, you have a standing aid, which, especially when you're slim and small, which I am not, serves as an okay seat. There is one more chance for cheap tickets. It's popular with the locals because it's the Jedermann Theater, and that's in German. The Jedermann is played between 15 and 20 times each season, and each time there's a chance for standing tickets. In fact, these tickets are only available at the box office. They're available an hour before the show, but they only cost 5 euros. That's why you will have to be there 2 to 3 hours ahead of time and line up. Other than for the opera, there are no subtitles at the Jedermann, so you ideally speak German, but even without understanding anything, the performance can be an experience and still worth the 5 euros. Now, is there a dress code at the Salzburg Festival? Although there is a dress code at the Salzburg Festival to be dressed appropriately, there are 2 options. Option number 1 is simply a suit or a dress and matching shoes. Most visitors choose option number 1. The second option would be a traditional clothes like lederhosen, trousers and dirndl dress. That's appropriate even if the Salzburg Festival is not a traditional Austrian folk festival, but a festival about classical music. In the past, you had to dress up and would have been refused without dressing up. But nowadays, you will not be denied entry if you're not properly dressed. Here is one personal anecdote. I attend a few shows every year, but I'm not afraid of being dressed inappropriately, so the elevator boy once refused to let me ride along when I was wearing a hoodie and jeans. He thought I was a stagehand. When he noticed that I was a guest, he let me join the ride anyway, and that's how it is. If you don't feel like dressing up, you don't have to, but please be aware that you will be an exception and could be mistaken for a stagehand. Now, would I recommend you to attend the Salzburg Festival? There are 250,000 tickets sold for the festival every year, yet for 99% of the tourists visiting Salzburg during the festival season, the festival remains irrelevant for several reasons. Most people who attend the festival come to Salzburg specifically for that purpose. They of course get their tickets beforehand and are generally into classical music. Most travelers remain unaware of the festival until they get to Salzburg. And even when they get here and hear about the festival, they remain confused. The Salzburg Festival is not what people imagine when hearing the term festival. Now, would I recommend to attend the shows when you have the chance? Absolutely, I would. When I was younger, tickets were less scarce than they are today. My mom worked in a government position and frequently received free tickets for rehearsals. She offered those tickets to me every time. I refused, telling her that I'm not interested without ever having attended a show. And when I was 25 years old in 2012 and just started in tourism, I participated at the Jedermann Theater for the first time and was blown away by the performance. That's when I wanted to know more and took every chance to see more shows. Nowadays it's not as easy anymore to get free or cheap tickets. Still nowadays I happily spend my money on these experiences. While you have the opportunity to see opera in many places when traveling, you don't often get the chance to see performances as high in quality as during the Salzburg Festival. In the show notes you will find some additional resources like the link to the website of the Salzburg Festival for more information and to look for tickets. In case you visit Salzburg outside of the festival season, there will be an article linked below and there will be an episode in the future about concerts in Salzburg in general. As always, I would be happy to hear from you if you have any questions or anything else to say, and I would be happy to see you on one of my tours in Salzburg someday. Take care, all the best, bye bye.